evening, everyone, and welcome to the Meet the Candidates event for the 49th Senate District of New York State. All candidates on the ballot were invited. This event was organized by the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County. My name is Kathy Kobrick. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Saratoga County, and I will be your moderator tonight. Before we start, I want to warn the candidates and our audience that the video taken tonight is the property of the League and can only be used by the League or licensed media according to FCC regulations. This event will be posted on our website in its entirety. It may not be used by the candidates except to post a link to the complete video. We do not make this request lightly. We have had recent experiences where candidates or their supporters have used portions of our video or an audience member's own video against their opponents. The League is a nonpartisan organization, and the use of the video by a campaign specifically against another candidate goes against our purpose. Additionally, this behavior would discredit us with candidates, making it difficult for us to sponsor future forums. All candidates participating this evening have pledged that they will abide by our policy. The League of Women Voters of Saratoga County is a nonpartisan volunteer political organization dedicated to the informed and responsible participation of citizens in government. The League never supports or opposes any political party or candidate. That has been our policy for the past 100 years. Since women got the right to vote in the United States of America all over the place. Membership is open to anyone who is eligible to register and vote, whether male or female. Please consider joining your local league. We have received questions from the public in advance. League members reviewed and compiled them to be representative and to avoid redundancy. We reject questions of a personal nature. Candidates, this is your opportunity to let voters know your stance on these topics and how you will address the issues facing the 49th district. Please don't waste valuable time tearing down or labeling your opponent. Deal with the facts. In your closing statements, absolutely no zingers. In other words, no putting your opponent on the spot with no chance to reply. We have timers for this evening's event. Cards will be held up for the candidates to glance at. Green means 1 minute left, yellow means 30 seconds left, and red means time is up. A bell will ring when your time is up, and then I will say time is up. The candidates for the 49th New York State Senate District in alphabetical order are Theresa Mccowman, running on the Democratic line, and Jim Tedisco running on the Republican, Conservative, and Independence lines. Now it is time to hear their 2-minute opening statements. They have drawn lots to determine the order. The first to speak will be Jim Tedisco. Jim?
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters and Theresa for her interest in public service. Most of all, I want to thank those who make it possible for me to be the strong voice in the 49th Senate District and state. My wife, Mary Song Tedisco, son, Andrew, and my entire family. True thanks to the most important part of our representative democracy, you, the voters who have elected me through 3 redistrictings by overwhelming margins, and the hundreds of individuals who walked the streets to garner over 4,000 signatures to get me on the ballot for the Republican, Conservative, and Independence Party lines. And thanks to all those groups that Theresa and I both interviewed with to ask for their endorsements. I'm proud to be endorsed by Labor's umbrella organization, the New York State AFL-CIO, along with CSEA and PEF, and many small business groups. As a teacher and longtime voice for education, I'm proud to have won the support of NYS, the New York State United Teachers. I was one of only 7 lawmakers who got the Medical Society's endorsement because of my efforts on behalf of nursing home patients and my work during the COVID virus. With your support, I've been able to achieve great success under the most difficult of circumstances. I authored the first property tax cap, which has saved homeowners in the 49th Senate District $365 million. I passed Proposition 2 to save taxpayers $13 million yearly by keeping tons of ink-filled paper off our desk and out of landfills, and instead placed a tablet on our desk that made us more effective. Last year, I stopped the governor from forcing New Yorkers to pay up to $45 to buy new license plates they did not need. I've been a strong voice for you, and you've been a strong voice for me. I humbly ask for your support in the upcoming election. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jim. Now it is time to hear from Theresa Mccowman.
Thank you, Kathy. I would like to also thank the League of Women Voters of Saratoga, as well as our moderator, Kathy, for hosting this forum, to Mr. Tedisco for finally accepting this very important conversation, and to you, the hardworking upstate New Yorkers, for finding the time to submit your questions and take part in this crucial application of our democracy. My name is Theresa Mccowman, and I'm an educator, historian, former nurse, but more importantly, I'm a mother and a new grandmother. Today, more than ever, we need a leader in office who understands the issues and struggles of a new generation, a leader who remains on the front lines during a pandemic as a beacon of hope, and a leader who answers to nobody but the people they have been elected to serve. I rose out of homelessness and hopelessness to become a proud homeowner and taxpayer in Schenectady. As a nurse, I understand the need for a fair contract and safe staffing for my fellow nurses and their patients all across the district. As an educator, I understand the importance of education for our students and the need for our public schools to be refunded back to 100%, no matter who sits in the White House. As a mother of four and a grandmother, I understand the threat climate change has on our future and the sense of urgency. On one, as your state senator, I will put a coalition together with my colleagues to make sure we put forth a renewable energy conversion plan by 2025. The future of our children and grandchildren is dependent on the decisions we make for them today. Tonight, you will hear my opponent call my issues social experiments, but when in fact, every one of my proposals are already established in many countries around the world, including here. Once again, my name is Theresa Mccowman, and I thank you for giving me the privilege to share with you how we can move forward together during tonight's discussion.
Okay, thank you very much. Now it is time for questions. Candidates will have up to 1.5 minutes to respond to questions. You are not required to respond. You may pass if you wish. You have 2 red cards during the question and answer session to provide an additional 1 minute to add to your response or to respond to something another candidate has said. Just hold up your hand and say red card, and I will acknowledge your request. Red cards may not be used in your opening and closing statements. The timer and I will keep track of the number of red cards used, so you can't use more than 2. Questions will be directed to candidates in rotation so that everyone gets a chance to respond first. Okay, first question, we're going to start with Jim. And the question is, in your opinion, what is the most pressing issue facing the 49th Senatorial District and New York State today? And how would you address this issue?
Well, we have twin issues right now. We have a severe health crisis with the COVID-19 virus, and we have an economic crisis. But it didn't start with this virus and this epidemic. We had a $6.1 billion deficit before the pandemic took place. And that's caused, I believe, by an agenda that doesn't have a carve out for economic development, job creation, or small business development. With that agenda, and I think Theresa mentioned it, about social experimentation, but that's not the only thing. They're legalizing a lot of things as a part of their agenda also, but there doesn't seem to be a carve out for economic development. We lost 180,000 people who walked out of the state of New York last year with their leadership. They control both houses, the progressives and the governor's office. When enough people leave the state of New York and can afford to, and you only have the middle class and lower income, how are we going to pay for a $178 billion budget? We won't be the empire state. We'll be the empty state. We need to have realistic efforts to keep people in New York. We have a brain drain, not a brain gain. I have a piece of legislation to keep students who graduate from 4-year schools and 2-year schools in New York State. $50,000 tax credits for 5 years for the 4-year and $25,000 credits for those in the 2-year to incentivize people to stay here, live here, marry here, buy a home. They'll stay here for a number of years. New York State doesn't have a revenue problem. We have a taxing and spending problem.
Thank you, Jim. Theresa, it's your turn to respond.
Kathy, can you read the question again, please?
I sure can. In your opinion, what is the most pressing issue facing the 49th Senatorial District and New York State today? And how would you address this issue?
So Mr. Tedisco is correct. We do have an economic issue, and he's right, it didn't start with the pandemic. He's had 30+ years to actually address it and fix it, and it has not happened. This is why we need new leadership. He speaks about our current leadership that's there now, the governor and other people on the federal level. That's not who you're running against, Mr. Tedisco. This is your record. You say that you have scholarships for students to encourage them to stay here, but yet and still we have economic flight. Students are not staying, even with the scholarship that you put forward. And the scholarships are not completely accessible. We need to make it accessible to all people, not just our students, not just property owners. We have to make sure that we are supporting our community 100%, not part of it, not some here and there, all of our students, investing in our small businesses, funding our schools 100%, no matter who's in the White House. Scholarships are not doing it. They have not been doing it. We need a change in leadership.
Okay, thank you very much. This next question, you're going to get to answer first, Theresa. COVID-19 has severely impacted upstate New York. Given the loss of tax revenue, what policies or legislative actions are needed to best mitigate this situation? Oh,
So, can you hear me okay?
yes.
Yeah, so yes, COVID actually laid bare our current economic situation. Long before COVID hit, we were already heading off the cliff. We were not economically solvent. And this, of course, speaks to Mr. Tedisco's record. He did not push for funding in our communities, for our schools, did not push for funding for all of our businesses. He did not push for any funding to support our entrepreneurs, minority-owned businesses. What we need to do and make sure going forward, especially when I become senator, is to support those same persons, businesses, and our schools. Like I said, how do we do that? We make sure that when we're sitting down with all my other colleagues in the Senate, and we're trying to decide how to get back on our feet, that we put the voices of the people first, not big businesses, not defunding our Medicare, but we make sure that the people are at the table making the decisions with us.
Okay, thank you very much. Jim, do you want me to repeat the question or are you good?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah, first and foremost, the progressives who have taken over both houses in the governor's office said that when they were saying, give me this, because we think we can give full foundation aid for education. They rallied, they had protests and everything. They didn't give one increase, 1 penny more than what we were giving before they took over the majority. They haven't changed the formula for education for high needs, low wealth districts. I fully support foundation aid. I fully support changing the formula for high need, low wealth districts like Schenectady. And we need some ability to give special concerns for the urban, suburban and rural areas in our community. But when she talks about funding, I got $17.7 million to increase aid to education during the time I was there. $9 million for foundation aid, $150,000 for the city of Schenectady for bullet aid, $80,000 for a backpack program. I got $1 million for 2 fire trucks for the city of Schenectady, 2 that were 20 years old in Schenectady, $1 million. and $50,000 to upgrade Central Park Greenhouse in the city of Schenectady, $20,000 in Bullard Aid for Schenectady day nursery tables and chairs. And you know what, they didn't come through, this majority that we're talking about here, who controls all the segments of power. Not one instance did they make a complete website or broadband so we can get emergency vehicles out to the northern part of our district. That's a serious misplacement of values.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is going to go to, oh, you want to use your red card? Okay, you got it, timers?
Let me know when I can start.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Mr. Tedisco is reading off of all of the funding that he's done in the past, when in fact, our schools, especially in Schenectady, are still $40 million in the red. And with the 20% education cuts that I did not see him fighting for, rallying with our teachers outside of his state office, that's going to hurt our students even more. What we need to support our infrastructure are jobs, green conversion, transferring our jobs dependent upon fossil fuels, and have that opportunity to train new people on new jobs. It's not enough just to support our small businesses. We have to support their employees as well. And that means increasing minimum wage. When people earn more, they are more productive. Higher productive output means increased revenue for all of our small businesses and eventually the state. This is how we build revenue. We invest in the people. It is also not enough just to create new jobs. We need careers, long-standing positions, and access to those jobs. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. You want to use your red card? Okay, this is a good topic.
Yeah,
Are you ready, timers? Okay, go.
yeah. Well, for the last 2 years, Jim Tedisco and the majority that was in place before that was not in place. They promised foundation aid. They promised a website infrastructure. They promised broadband. They haven't done any of that information. I got $25 million for the 5 counties in my 49th senatorial district. And what did they do? Well, as it has been mentioned, they have a bill in place to legalize marijuana. It affects retention, it affects memory. It's going to impact our scores for kids in schools when they see that happen. They didn't support a proposal that I put in place, which I got a $300,000 grant for the corrections facility in the city of Schenectady for those who are addicted to drugs, not injection sites, free injection sites, which is a part of their progressive agenda. That will make people not languish in jail and come out addicted, continue to be addicted. That will give them treatment and have them a chance to come out drug-free and have a life and contribute. So those are the things I accomplished. They haven't accomplished the things they talk about.
Thank you. Okay,
Kathy,
Next.
I have a question. Can I
Yes.
ask you a question? I know in the beginning you said not to throw any zingers or, waste our time with, taking down our opponents. I'm finding it kind of difficult to follow Mr. Tedisco, especially when the fact that he is not using my name.
okay, I'll tell you what.
Progressive. How can we, is that like against the rules? That's my question.
Okay, I think that what I'm seeing from both of you is a little bit too much talking about the other person's record and not actually telling people what you're going to do. And I would
That's what I
really
wanted to know. Yeah.
appreciate
Okay.
that. Okay.
Okay.
So for
Thank
both
you.
of you, because I think that's what we want to tell people how you're going to solve problems, because we all
Yes.
agree that we have these issues. And it's not that one side is evil and bad or whatever. It's that you have a way of solving this problem, and conservatives have a way of solving a problem, and progressives have a way of solving a problem. And we want to learn what they are. It's an educational opportunity for us to talk about the issues. And we've
I
got to
agree
be
with
more
that.
civil. Okay, so
I agree with that. Talk about the
let's
issues.
let's be civil. Okay.
Okay.
We've got to tone it down. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. Question 3. And this one is going to go to you, Jim. As a consequence of the pandemic, many New Yorkers have lost their employment-based health insurance, and our healthcare system is challenged. Should the Affordable Care Act be eliminated, what can be done to ensure that New York citizens have access to quality, affordable health care?
Well, the fact of the matter is everybody deserves affordable health care. But I agree with Joe Biden and the President of the United States. Joe Biden, who is the Democratic candidate for President of the United States, said several times during the debate with about 19 other of the candidates, and he got the endorsement, 85% of Americans have insurance. If they have insurance and they want to keep it, they should be able to keep their insurance. Now, a single payer approach is a cookie cutter approach. What it would do, and Mr. Biden said this, running for president, take away negotiating power of labor. They wouldn't be able to negotiate their contracts anymore. Single payer is a $200 billion largest tax in the history of New York State. Our budgets are only $178 million. Vermont went to that single payer. They almost went bankrupt in 1 year. The governor lost an election because they had to go back to their own process. California, very progressive, wouldn't even go to it. So I think Biden is right about that one issue. So is the President of the United States. They both agree that if you like your insurance and you have your insurance, you should be able to keep your insurance. And then we need a carve out. We need healthcare insurance policies. We need to open up expansion of insurance across the nation. They shouldn't have a monopoly. We need doctors to provide best practices for their patients, not do one test after another test after another test to protect their income and their assets and their tuition for their college kids.
Okay, thank you very much. Teresa.
Thank you, Kathy. Let me actually answer that question. Health insurance should not be based on employment. That's privileged and elitist. Every single person should have access to universal, affordable health care, meaning that all people have access to health services that they need, regardless of employment status or income. That's prevention, promotion, treatment, rehabilitation, and palliative care without the fear of financial strains or hardship. The New York Health Act actually provides comprehensive universal health coverage for every New York resident and worker, replacing existing insurance. So instead of big pharma making decisions and causing an opioid epidemic, people and their providers will be the deciders for their own health care, as it should be.
Okay, thank you very much. The next question you're going to get to answer first, Theresa. What measures will you support to provide equal educational opportunities for all of New York's children?
I'm sorry, the sound went out. I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
Yes. What measures will you support to provide equal educational opportunities for all of New York's children?
Yes, so equal education opportunity for all of New York's children. I actually have 4 children, and I was actually privileged. My children were privileged enough to actually participate in in the Head Start program and early childhood programs, and also wraparound pre-K. And I want to make sure, especially from pre-K all the way up to college, to make sure that we continue to fund these programs. They are very essential for developmental progress for our kids. And not just funding these programs pre-K all the way through high school, but making sure that we fund after-school programs like Girls Inc. here in Schenectady, and funding our Boys and Girls Clubs, making sure that during school, after school, and even before school, our preschool programs, making sure that our students are always funded. That is one of my #1 initiatives when I'm elected, to make sure that we continue to fund and support our students all around.
Okay, thank you very much. Jim, it's your turn.
Yeah, kids are our future, and certainly their education is their future. And I'm proud of the fact that I'm the education candidate here. I not only was an educator for 10 years, I know the importance of education. I taught kids with learning disabilities, special education, got my degree from the College of St. Rose. Now, we've been promised full foundation aid, and I support full foundation aid. That's why I'm endorsed by NYS, the New York State United Teachers, okay? I'm a teacher. We both interviewed for that, and I'm proud that I got that endorsement. But there's three things we have to do, which I've supported since I've been in the New York State Legislature, in the Assembly and the Senate. Full foundation aid. When the superintendent was here in Schenectady, in the other districts of high need, low wealth districts, they said, Senator, we appreciate your efforts to adjust that formula so the powerful elements don't get all the funding in the wealthy districts. High need, low wealth districts, $17 million I got for the city of Schenectady, $9 million of foundation aid in the backpack program. But we also need something else besides adjusting that particular formula for high need, low wealth districts. We have to have autonomy. We have urban, rural, and suburban districts. This is a cookie cutter formula. The city of Schenectady, in Niskayuna, out in Gloversville and Johnstown, the rural areas, they have different needs. They have school boards and they have great administrators. They know what to do with funding. We have about 14 or 15 different cookie cutter parts of that formula, which they're forced to spend for. They should be having more autonomy. I support that in the formula.
Thank you. Okay, that was very good. Both of you addressed the issues, and that's what the voters want to hear. So thank you.
Okay.
Jim, you're going to get this one. New Yorkers need high speed and reliable broadband internet. What solutions do you have to help the rural areas in New York State that still do not have this service, especially at this critical time?
Yeah, if you ask my colleagues in the New York State Senate from both sides of the aisle, what does Jim talk most about to a great extent on the floor of the New York State Senate? And they will tell you, this is what Jim Tedisco has said several times. In parts of the 49th Senatorial District, in rural areas, this is tongue in cheek, but I have to get the message across. You need homing pigeons or smoke signals to get cell phone usage and broadband in parts of those districts. Now, you'd laugh a little bit and you joke about it, but it's not a joking matter. It affects public safety. It affects education. It affects job creation. We could not get to 25,000 jobs from Amazon, which their side of the aisle, I have to say this, the progressives just threw away. We don't need 25,000 jobs in New York City. Do you know what parts of the 49th Senatorial District would do and could use those 25,000 jobs? We can't get it because we don't have broadband. It was promised to us. The governor promised that to us. Every day I stand up and I fight for that broadband, for that infrastructure, that web infrastructure, because you can't develop a business out there unless you have that infrastructure. We couldn't get those 25,000 jobs. If there's an emergency out there, a boat accident, a crime, somebody breaking into your house, there's no cell phone usage in many instances. I can't get a call when I'm in large parts of the 49th Senatorial District. So I fight every day for that. I ask them every day for that. You promised it. You have one voice from one political affiliation, from one region. Give us that in the 49th Senate District and across the state.
Okay, Theresa.
Yes, so I think Mr. Tedisco really showed his cards here in regards to how he's fought for broadband and we still don't have it. What we need to do is, in order to get 25,000 jobs in this district, we need to have a district that's attractive. That means lower taxes. That means supporting our schools without the burden being on our homeowners. And that also means investing in our communities all around, urban, suburban, it doesn't matter. When we do this, then businesses will want to invest in here. Amazon was taking such a huge tax cut. There were no benefits for the immediate community. When we have big businesses coming in who want to invest in our district, once I get in there and make us more attractive by supporting our community, now, when they come in, a community benefits package. That's the number one thing they have to have. And if they're not coming with community benefits packages, then they cannot settle down and make their homes here. If it's not benefiting the community 100%, then why would we have them? That's what we need to do. Attract big businesses and medium-sized and small tech businesses here to make sure that we can fund the last mile of broadband. It is the 21st century. Mr. Tedisco has been there for over 30 years and we still do not have broadband in this district.
Okay, thank you. This next question is going to go to you first, Theresa. While the 49th Senate District includes the city of Schenectady, the district is largely rural. How do you plan to advocate for both your urban and rural constituents?
I actually started advocating for the rural portions of this district when I was campaign manager for Patrick Nelson in New York 21. We were running against Elise Stefanik. So I got firsthand knowledge and experience listening to the constituents a few years back on exactly what their unique needs are in the district. So I already have a good mind of that. And also, when I decided to run for Senate, I made sure I reached out to our small farmers, our small dairy farmers out there. And I've been on so many conference calls with them, like 12, 15 hours worth of learning about the fact that we need a pro-agri legislative plan so that we can reverse the damage that our current dairy formula has had for our dairy farmers. There's so much, and plus a lot of people don't know this, but yes, I'm a Black woman, and yes, I'm a city girl, but I went to school for animal medicine. I did a year in animal medicine and worked as a vet tech. So I have firsthand what it takes to run a farm, because I worked on a farm, and understand the needs of our farmers. I've actually made some good friends out there, Dwayne the farmer and all of the women farmers out there, all Republicans, mind you. So I have their issues and needs in mind and hand, and I plan to make sure that I fight for them.
Thank you. Okay, Jim.
Well, nobody says it better than local elected officials. The supervisor of Wells, some of you might have read an opinion piece, a letter to the editor in the Gazette. He talked about Senator Jim Tedisco driving 2.5 hours out to Wells, the great town of Wells, in the rural areas of the 49th Senate District, to help be there, to join everybody for my efforts and the supervisor's efforts of lobbying for a Stewart's to open up in that rural area. Now you have to understand this, in those rural areas, a Stewart's is as important as a grocery store in the city of Glenville, town of Glenville, the city of Schenectady, and other parts in Niskayuna. They need those types of businesses and jobs out there because they don't have grocery stores out there. So the supervisor understands that I'm not only fighting for broadband so you can get jobs out there, for cell phone usage out there, I'm fighting for taxes to be reduced and moderated, regulations to be reduced and moderated, and mandates to be reduced and moderated, because we can't always have just an agenda that has no carve out, whether you're progressive, whether you're conservative or liberal, has no carve out for economic development. And now, I haven't been in the majority in the New York State Legislature. I've been effective in the minority. In fact, I authored the first property tax cap, which saved $365 million. I talked about Proposition 2. And so last year, the governor tried to have a $70 million highway heist. You know who was against it? Everybody in the 49th Senatorial District, especially those in the rural areas and the city areas. It was $45 for license plates and to keep your number. I stopped him from doing that.
Okay. This next question, I want you each to focus on your response, how you're going to handle it, which you both have been doing, but this one is a hot button issue. Police use of excessive force and the unequal enforcement of the law are concerns of many citizens, not just Black and brown people. What reforms do you support to make everyone safer and the system more just? And that's going to you first, Jim Tedisco.
Okay, I supported 8 reforms on the floor of the New York State Senate. The ones that come to mind: eliminated arresting individuals who refuse to be arrested, chokeholds. We have to eliminate that. 9/11 calls that are unfounded and illegal against individuals of color and any individual. Also, if there's an emergency where you have to arrest somebody and somebody is injured, I voted for immediacy on giving those individuals healthcare support. In videos, you should be able to video and keep an eye on law enforcement. But let me say this. I think it's incredible that someone would suggest to defund law enforcement. And the one thing that upsets our constituents the most is hypocrisy. You know, criminal justice reform that they talk about now, which is a revolving door of danger and in disaster, it turns the scales upside down on innocent, honest, law-abiding citizens. Our law enforcement people go to work and put their lives on the line. When they go home, Velcro is the most beautiful sound their families hear because they're taking off their body armor. To suggest they're all racist individuals and brutalizers is another form of discrimination. It's stereotyping. Yes, on the floor of the New York State Senate, go look at my website. I stood up and said this, and it's at the top of my Twitter site right now. The center of evil is discrimination. It's bias, it's prejudice, it's racism, it's anti-Semitism, but it's also ageism and it's also stereotyping. We have to get in the face of that, but we cannot defund our law enforcement. If they can't protect themselves, they can't protect us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Theresa, it's your turn.
So this is a very personal issue for me, not just because I'm a woman of color and I have a son, a Black man as a son, but this is personal for me because I have several family members who are police officers. My husband trained with the New York City Police. My father-in-law is a former superintendent of police. I have cousins and friends who serve their communities as officers of the law. And I asked them, what do you feel about what is happening? And they said, when one bad apple spoils, when there's one bad apple, it spoils the bunch. We need full transparency so that our officers who are doing an amazing job are no longer forced into invisibility by the spotlight on bad cops. Full transparency and accountability. Mr. Tedisco voted against that, the repeal of 50A, which means that we make sure that we make the disciplinary records of all of our officers public knowledge so that we know who's policing our communities and we can get rid of the bad cops. And also this, if we do not repeal these things, it actually supports the blue wall of silence. And from my family members, they said that's what's hurting them the most. They can't speak out against bad cops. So they become the bad cops under that umbrella. And it's wrong. It's not fair to our police officers. And when we speak about defunding the police, it is not abolishing or getting rid of it. Let's get that straight. What we're talking about is demilitarizing the police, funding what we need to fund for our police officers and putting that extra money back into the community.
Thank you.
Over politics. That's what we need to do.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to.
You want to use your
another-
red card? Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
One thing I didn't mention about those 8 bills that I voted on the floor. The reason why I couldn't support the other bill, because their unfounded accusations will be let out to let the public see. How would any of us like to have our careers ruined by having MS-13 gang members, one after one after one, make unfounded complaints against police, which are open to the public? But here's the bill that is being out there right now, which they won't bring to the floor. Something we do. We are given diversity funding every single year as senators and assembly people. I haven't heard anybody talk about supporting a bill, which I have right now, which would provide diversity funding every single year for every law enforcement official, not to get at the 99% that are hardworking, putting their lives on the line, don't know if they're going to come home alive, take an oath of office to serve and protect, but diversity training to get at those people who have small hearts, small minds, and don't respect diversity, and let them understand what cultural diversity is all about. I think that would be a great bill to pass, and I hope it comes to the floor with this majority and we can vote it in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're both doing a great job. All right. The next question is going to you, Jim. COVID-19 pandemic has revealed how dependent our society is on low-wage workers, especially caregivers for children and the elderly, grocery clerks, healthcare aides. You know what we're talking about. What measures do you support to address income inequality?
My father worked in the foundry at the General Electric for 30 years. When I was around 8 to 10 to 12, is there a mistake? Did you?
I was supposed to let Theresa go first, but because I got mixed up because of the red cards, but.
That's okay, Kathleen. He can go ahead and continue.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Yeah, can we
Start
start
over
again?
timing. Yeah, let's start over timing, please.
Yeah. My father worked in the foundry for 30 years. I marched in picket lines with him. And I understand the minimum wage and I support the minimum wage. What I don't support, because you were talking about people who work at nursing homes and the people there who I support now, to make a plan for the future, I have an outside independent commission bill with subpoena power. It's sponsored by 3 Democrats, majority members in the assembly, so we can deal if there's an uptick in this coronavirus and give the family members some closure. But I support minimum wage. But what happens with the governor? He did a $15 minimum wage for fast food workers, but he didn't do it for those people who we're talking about, the most vulnerable, ARCs, those people who work with people who are compromised and disabled. So what's happening and what did happen? They left there to sit at cash registers at the fast food. Why? Not because they didn't love working with those who were disabled, because they had families. If we're going to do minimum wage, we should do it across the board. We shouldn't make workers have burnout at ARCs, at nursing homes, because you gave $15 of a minimum wage to fast food workers. I want everybody to get minimum wage, a good one. And I've always stood up for labor in negotiations for safety. I actually went in and solved some problems when there were safety factors. So I understand the concerns of these minimum wage individuals, and we should have increases in minimum wage, but it has to be across the board in the state, and it should be national, really.
Okay, thank you. Excellent. Okay, Theresa, it's your turn.
Actually, I agree with Mr. We do need to increase the minimum wage. Cost of living has increased and wage hasn't, but my understanding is the pilot program to institute the $15 an hour wage was to go to our food service workers to see if it would actually have a better impact on the communities, and also if it would affect small businesses and their revenue and their overhead costs. And it did not. It actually benefited it didn't affect small businesses and our food services negatively. It actually impacted them positively. So yes, he's right. We do need to increase minimum wage by $15 all across the board. I know this more than anything. I worked in geriatric nursing. I also worked as a hostess / waitress, and we need to make sure, and I'm actually endorsed by those organizations who support increased wages for our essential workers, for our essential hero workers. So this is something I will be working hard to. He's had 30 years to get this done and it hasn't. So this will be one of the first things I push forward to make sure that we spread that $15 an hour minimum wage across the board for all of our healthcare workers and all our essential workers.
Okay, thank you. Theresa, this is your turn to go first. The purpose of the original bail reform law was to reduce the number of people jailed while awaiting trial simply because they could not afford to pay bail. On July 1st, certain amendments that were passed by the legislature in April took effect. The most significant change is that there are more situations where judges can impose cash bail. They will also have more discretion in setting bail and other conditions of pretrial release. What are your views on New York State's current bail reform law?
Well, my view is this: it needs to happen. We are in a desperate need of criminal justice and police reform, but we need to understand and also look at it through a long time. It took us a long time to get here in this horrible, oppressive system that we have now that disproportionately affects Black and brown folk and poor folk. It took us a long time to get here. It's going to take us a lot of time to get out of this. And just like you stated earlier, Kathy, we need to make sure that we are speaking about goals. Our goal is to make sure that the criminal justice system is working properly and is not disproportionately negatively affecting Black and brown folk, but that it is reformed so that it is not put an undue burden on our police officers who are essentially right now social workers with guns, but and actually supporting our poor folk and make sure that those who are convicted are not, that we do away with recidivism. And in order to do that, we need to make sure that benefit is all around, that we make the change. But make no mistake, we do need change, it needs to happen, but poor people and people of color are often disproportionately affected. And to quote Sophia Elijah, prisons as we know them can be best defined as weapons of mass destruction. This destruction can be felt from the incarcerated individual to their families, to the community, and ultimately the negative repercussions will be felt throughout the nation and is being felt. So I fully support criminal justice and police reform.
Thank you. Okay, Jim.
Yeah, there are just some things that rise above politics, and this is one of them. DA Carney, Democrat. DA Soros, Democrat. DA Brown, Republican from Fulton County. Sheriff Apple, Democrat sheriff from Albany. Sheriff D'Agostino, conservative. Zerlo, Sheriff Saratoga, all in opposition to the present system of what they call criminal justice reform and cash bail. Now, they and I and Assemblyman Santa Barbara all agree that we need criminal justice reform. This isn't it. This is a revolving door of danger and disaster. It turns the scale of justice upside down. Don't believe any of us, the people I just mentioned or myself. Look to Albany, a 400% increase in violent crime. An 11-year-old boy was shot in the streets. We all support this. I have a bill. It's been editorialized across the state, bipartisan bill, once again, because I like to work across party lines with Assemblyman Santa Barbara, brings discretion back to judges in 3 ways. If there was a violent felon beforehand, you could use cash bail as a judge, because the present system takes basically all discretion away from judges. If there was a violent felony, we should give discretion to judges. If a court date, somebody didn't show up for it, you gave them one chance, they didn't show up. You have to have discretion as a judge to take them off the street at that time. If they commit another crime before they came back before the justice system, the judge has to have discretion. In those 3 areas, I think it makes sense. But right now, the statistics shows it's a disaster in discriminating against innocent, honest, law-abiding citizens.
Thank you. Okay.
Kathy,
You want to use your red card?
please.
Okay, timers, are you ready?
Like I said before, this is near and dear to my heart because of my family members who are actually in police enforcement. And I actually attended a fundraiser with DA Soros and Chief Apple was there as well. And we spoke about this. We spoke about the horrible cycle that's happening in our communities. Our parents are blaming the police are blaming the system. What we need to do, like I said before, is make sure that our police are, I'm sorry, I'm hearing barking and it's like, I'm sorry.
Oh, Senator Tedisco, can you mute your, can you
Yeah.
mute? And we're going to have to give Theresa a little more time.
Let me know when I can start again, please.
Ladies? Elizabeth? Okay, go.
Okay. So like I said before, this is near and dear to my heart. So the fear mongering that says that we are allowing criminals back onto the street is not logical. It makes absolutely no sense. You are innocent until proven guilty. So what essentially they're saying is that because we have police reform and we have justice reform, that now everyone is on the street. We have a bunch of criminals. I think it's discriminatory and presumptuous to say that everyone that's out there are criminals. We have justice reform to make sure that our system works the way it's supposed to work, to deter crime, and also when we're punishing people who are found guilty of crime, that they do not go back into that criminal life. We have to make sure that we're supporting our police officers, our communities, and also make sure that we deter recidivism by funding our communities 100% from cradle all the way up to college level.
Okay, thank you. All right, you've both used your red cards, so that's done over. We're going to move to question number 10, and Jim, you're going to go first. New York State recently enacted many election law reforms. but same-day registration and no excuse absentee balloting must be passed again by the legislature. Would you support these proposals? And are there other election reforms that you support? And make sure you unmute yourself.
First and foremost, we're the greatest nation in the world for one reason, because of the best, the brightest, the most courageous and compassionate fighting force for good in the world, the men and women of our armed forces. We had great founding fathers. They built a great constitution. They built a great democracy, but they didn't give us freedom and liberty. Those are inalienable rights in that Bill of Rights and Constitution. We live those freedoms at a higher level than any other nation in the world because of men and women who are willing to sacrifice everything. Voting is very, very important. First of all, let me say, I would never support universal voting. And what that means, the Boston Marathon bomber who tried to destroy freedom and liberty, killed individuals, didn't just take away their voting rights, but took away their lives, every right. Universal voting would give that person and everybody that's incarcerated the ability to vote. That's totally inappropriate. January 14th, 2019, S1049 gives no excuse absentee voting for every New Yorker in the state of New York. Now, that was Betty Little's piece of legislation when we were in the majority. We tried to get it passed in the Assembly and Senate. They wouldn't go for it in the Assembly. Senator Comrie took the bill. We don't have a pride of authorship, and he passed it and I voted for it. Universal absentee voting. That is what we need, because seniors may not have a ride. They don't need an excuse that they're sick. They shouldn't need any other excuse. If we want to really get people to the polls, we should allow for universal, and I voted for universal ability to have an absentee ballot without any excuse.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, and we need you to mute, and then Theresa, it's your turn.
I just want to make a correction. Mr. Tedisco, you actually voted against extending out access to absentee ballots, especially during this pandemic. You voted against same-day voting. And also, I think that if a person is incarcerated, continuing to punish them by refusing their American right to vote, I think it's wrong. As a legislator, as a lawmaker, when we're composing laws to make sure that we are bettering the lives of the people in our district and our constituents. We should not be continuing to punish them when we've already done so. They're paying their dues while they're incarcerated. That does not mean that they don't have the right mind to vote. So taking that away from incarcerated persons, I think is just wrong and it's inhuman. And it actually speaks to the new Jim Crow. Taking votes from people, especially those who are incarcerated, which are predominantly Black, Latino, Brown, and poor folk, it was part of the new Jim Crow to make sure that we disenfranchise those voices so that the majority, the elitists, would be able to continue to do the things they need to do to keep us oppressed. So I am for making sure that everyone has access to the ballot, no matter what, no questions asked. Same day registration, same day voting, and you can vote by mail if you want to.
Okay, thank you very much. I see it's about 9 minutes of 8. We said we'd go till 8. So I think we have time for 2 more questions. And these have a real personal note. They weren't edited. They came in at the last minute, so I'm going to read them. Theresa, you're first. I have a daughter in college. My question for both candidates is, what are you going to do to stop the brain drain of people leaving New York State?
Yeah, and who was that? Do we have the name of that person? Who
No, I don't know. The head of voter services sent it on to me today. So
I want to thank them for that. And this is personal for me too. I have two children. My 16-year-old just started college full time. And my 14-year-old just started early college. And I am very privileged and honored to have children who are anxious to be in school. And so I know what you're going through. My children wanted to move away. My son actually moved to Florida because, like I said before, our communities have been disinvested. We have for far too long let these career politicians put politics over people. We need to make sure that we are building our infrastructure in all the communities across the district, no matter if they're rural or urban, and making sure that we incentivize our students, not through scholarships, which are actually exclusionary. We need to make sure that they have access to all funding for their schools and that we give them an incentive that's worth their time to come back to their communities. And the incentive is invest in them now, while they're in high school, while they're in middle school, invest in their parents, invest in their communities, invest in their playgrounds, and then they will see the quality of life here and want to reinvest into their own children, their future children, by coming back and staying here. We have not seen that in almost 40 years all across the district because we have not had a leader who understands that that's what we need, support our communities and support our students, and they will come back.
Okay, thank you. Jim, I think you spoke about brain drain in your opening statement, so this is made for you. You gotta unmic yourself.
We have a tremendous brain drain in New York State. I mentioned that earlier, and we don't have a brain gain. I'm sorry, I have to correct Theresa on this. I didn't say anything about scholarships. We already have scholarships. What my proposal is exactly what she was talking about. For 4-year graduates, $50,000 of tax credits each of 5 years. They get a job. If they make $60,000, they get a tax credit for the first 50. Why is that important for them? Because if they stay here 2, 3, 4, or 5 years, they build a business. They've been incentivized through a tax credit for 2-year schools, a $25,000 credit. Then we'll keep them here. They're married, they'll buy a house, they'll create jobs. That's exactly what I think Theresa said. It wasn't scholarships, Theresa. And I just have to make the point and get this on the record. What Theresa said basically is the Boston Marathon bomber, a terrorist who took lives and wants to destroy freedom and liberty, should be able to vote for the elected officials who make the laws to protect us. I just think that has to be on the record tonight and stay on the record for the voters and the constituents of the 49th Senate District, because I think we understand at some point when you try to destroy America, the fact that the best and the brightest fought and sacrificed their lives so we could have these freedoms and liberties. This is a terrorist bomber. You're talking about serial murderers, and you want to give them the vote to help elect officials which make the laws to protect us. I think that's wrong. Our Constitution says there are limits on your freedoms.
Okay, I think I'm wrong. It's 5 of 8 and it's time, we're gonna have to do closing statements. And they flipped a coin for this and somehow Jim came up to be the second, and Theresa, you're gonna go first with your closing statement. You have 1 minute.
Thank you so much. Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters, and thank you, Kathy, for being so gracious with us and correcting us and answering our questions. Tonight, you all heard both my vision and my opponent's. The difference being that my opponent has had the same vision for over 30 years, and the results of his vision can be seen all around us. We've got struggling families in Perth and Lake Pleasant. We've got crumbling infrastructure in Boston Lake and Schenectady. We have farmers losing their livelihood in Herkimer County, and prescription drug prices and food prices soaring all across our cities and our towns and our district, while unemployment increases. No matter what party you belong to, you have a true choice this November. My name is Theresa Mccowman, and on November 3rd, I humbly ask for your vote to be that needed voice and leader for change.
Okay, thank you very much. Jim, you get the last word.
Okay, thank you again to the League and to Theresa. As we work through this COVID-19 crisis to safely reopen our economy, I humbly ask for your support so that I may have the honor to continue to be a strong voice for our community and state. In this serious crisis, I've been working across party lines on solutions to protect our quality of life. I was proud to have been successful in helping thousands of residents get their unemployment checks so they could support their families and pay bills. When thousands died in state-run nursing homes, I was the first to call for and introduce bipartisan legislation for an independent and unbiased investigation with subpoena power to get the facts about what happened. I've been a leader in the area of public safety by authoring bipartisan legislation to give discretion back to judges. My pledge is to continue to be a strong voice to keep New York working. I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote on November 3rd. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Remember, audience, to vote. The general election is November 3rd. Early voting has already started and it goes through November 1st. You can look up your early voting and election day sites at voterlookup.elections.newyork.gov. I want to thank both candidates for attending this event. I think you did a great job of educating the voters. We got back on track. We were off for a little while, but this is what we need to do. This is what democracy should look like, and you guys made it happen. And thank you, audience, for checking in to see who you're voting for. Best of luck to both of you. Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Good night,
Okay,
everyone.
bye.